Hi there, Dave Markham for You A Way of Life. Back in the 60s, used to hear the term cosmic consciousness. That's when people were dropping acid and doing drugs in hippy dippy days. And, it was a time of love as well as civil rights and protests against the Vietnam War, but it was the age of Aquarius, and cosmic consciousness was all the rage. And having left the seminary and gone to the State University College at Brockport at first I thought I wanted to be an English teacher. I wound up getting a degree in philosophy of all things, but at any rate, it was during that period in my life in my 20s when cosmic consciousness was a meme that was freely bandied around. Here I am, 72, 50 years later, and I'm thinking cosmic consciousness is our destiny. To become with it all. The joke about the Buddhist monk that goes to the hot dog vendor and he says, "Make me one with everything." And he gives the hot dog vendor $5 for a $2.50 hot dog, and he waits patiently. And when the hot dog vendor doesn't give him any change, he says to him, "Say, fella, where's my change?" And the hot dog vendor said to the Buddhist monk, he says, "Oh, my good monk, you should know more than anyone that change comes from within." So, apparently the Buddhist monk hadn't realized that. He wanted to be one with everything, but he didn't realize that change comes from within. Well, at any rate, us Unitarian Universalists covenant together to affirm and promote the respect for the independent web of which we are a part. I've always felt that it's more than just respect for the interdependent web. It ought to be the love for the interdependent web. And then when I get thinking about cosmic consciousness, it seems to me that it's more than respect and even love. It's surrender to the experience of the wholeness of the cosmic consciousness. On the path of the ego, things can get complicated pretty fast. We humans have learned that deconstructing entities into their component parts gives us power to manipulate these entities and the things related to them. That's a whole scientific method, right? You take an organism, you break it down into its organs, which you break down into its molecules, which you break down into its atoms, which breaks down into their subatomic parts. And it's understanding the phenomena and how it's related and interacts that gives us technological power to manipulate those processes. However, at the same time that we've learned to deconstruct and analyze things, we also have learned that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. Deconstruction of the entity does not give us the whole story. In the last analysis, it's the whole story that we desire, not just the parts. And there's something about the harmony of the parts, the interdependence, which is a mystery and isn't explained by the mechanics. So that leads to the spiritual idea that salvation lies in the whole, not in the parts. Salvation comes from joining and unifying, like the monk says, "Make me one with everything." Salvation comes from the awareness that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, and it is in this wholeness that we experience peace and fulfillment and completion. Salvation follows from the answer to the question, what would love have me do? The question is simple enough if we respond to it at face value. It's an overthinking. that question, what would love have me do, that we get ourselves into trouble. I think our basic intuition about what love would have me do, even though the ego screams out in horror, is probably where the truth and salvation lies. Giving up our dichotomizing minds frightens us. It seems unnatural on the path of the ego for the ego would have us separate and discriminate and segregate and compare and compete and eliminate and attack and oppress and subjugate and exclude and even kill, because it's afraid of wholeness, of non-dualistic awareness. Because the ego in non-dualistic awareness would evaporate. It would cease to exist. And therein the fear and the panic that we experience in our ego arises. So the ego protests against this and fights against this and becomes defensive, antagonistic towards anything that threatens its existence. The ego insists that we protect it, sometimes at all costs. As it says in the Course in Miracles, our tolerance for pain is exceedingly high in some instances. And some of us that have worked in the substance abuse field say that people have to hit bottom before they're ready to change. And in the first step of Alcoholics Anonymous, we're told that we have to recognize and admit that our life is unmanageable. We've promised ourselves and others over and over and over again that we could control it and we could manage it, and we run dead smack into the wall and finally have to admit that our lives are unmanageable. And the old joke is, if you want to hear God laugh, tell God your plans, right? So the first step is to admit that our lives are unmanageable. The ego would prefer that we give up our souls, that it can stay intact. You know, we talk about selling our souls to the devil. We make pacts with the devil all the time. I'll only have one more drink. I'm only going to eat one more bowl of ice cream. I'm only going to drive drunk one more time. I know I shouldn't be playing around on my spouse, and hopefully he or she'll never find out, and after this liaison I'll quit, and so on. I'm only going to steal $100 more from my employer, and hopefully they won't find out. And we come to learn, and it's a sign of wisdom, that these kinds of rationalizations is a fool's bargain. In the end, we have to admit that our life are unmanageable and surrender to our higher power, whatever we conceive our higher power to be. Again, in Alcoholics Anonymous, they say, let go and let God, or simply let go. I'll do my best. The universe will do the rest. So we must surrender our single drop of the ocean to be reabsorbed once again back into the oceanic cosmic consciousness. We have to let go. Happens to all of us sooner or later. We can do it willingly or unwillingly. The path of the Spirit would encourage us to make a choice. And it's a choice we can always make, whether we want to continue our walk on the path of the ego or we want to embark on the path of the Spirit. And it's a choice we make every minute of every day for the rest of our life. And I hope that you will walk with me and the rest of us on You A Way of Life, and look with joy and peace towards the experience of the cosmic consciousness. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Dave Markham here. For you, your way of life. Be well. Stay well. Bye.